Has everyone been having fun at Zoomtopia? Yeah? Seeing some cool stuff? Saw some hardware you want to see actually integrated into a system, maybe? So we're going to talk about all this stuff. So this is our agenda today. We have Drew Brown from Equinix to give a customer testimonial. So that's going to be really great. We have our product overview. We're going to show sort of DIY versus Pro AV, as well as some hardware options, our designs from a PSO standpoint. So I am the solution architect at PSO. Basically, we have our own designs that we deploy out. So we're going to talk about those different designs. It's going to be really cool. And then we'll talk about hardware resellers as well. So let's start with a product overview. We're going to talk about Zoom. What is Zoom? How is it revolutionizing the conference room? So what are Zoom Rooms? So Zoom Rooms really is a software-based video conferencing and collaboration experience. It really overrides all the experiences of traditional conference rooms. So hardware-based systems, hardware-based video conferencing, H.323 and SIP endpoints, Apple TV or a Barco click share for your wireless aspect, PSTN, maybe that's tied into a DSP, maybe you're utilizing a VoIP card or a POTS card to do phone dialing, and then AV controls and switching, right? So we're kind of overriding all of those aspects of systems in certain use cases. So how does it work? It's really built on the room resource, right? So the room resource is going to be the most important aspect to show you one-touch meetings, right? So you'll be able to start a one-touch meeting from that room resource tied into your calendar integration. We also have multi-screen content sharing, so you can walk in, even not in a meeting, you just start content sharing right in the room. We also have controls via touch, so UVC control of any PTZ camera, you have camera control, and then you also have a one-for-one aspect of whatever's on the desktop application, so mic muting, video muting, things like that. So multi-screen sharing is a new feature. You're able to have many people sharing into a Zoom room and putting different content up on different screens, right? And then also we have many different ways to do that. So we have the wireless sharing via proximity or key. So proximity sharing is really cool. You just walk into a room, you're running your Zoom room application, and you just start sharing by hitting share screen, right? AirPlay mirroring, we also support. So any iOS device or an Apple device, basically you can share to AirPlay. And then share.zoom.us, when you hit share screen, it's going to come up with some information. There will be a code to put in on share.zoom.us, and you're basically sharing out to the cloud, and then your content is coming back into the room that way. Wired HDMI, basically we're using a USB converter that converts HDMI over to USB. So flexible calendar integration. We support Exchange as well as Google. So all of your details for that room can be shown on the display itself, on the controller, outside of the room. So all of those details are there. Once you make it a Zoom meeting, you have that one touch to start as well. I think this guy's dying, sorry. So flexible telephony support as well. Basically, there's a couple of ways to do phone integration. So you get a dialing page when you sign up for Zoom Premium Audio, and then it's more like the cloud is actually dialing out to those endpoints. We also support PBX, so your existing CUCM, Ring Central, ShoreTel, Avaya, any way that you're going to dial out through your existing infrastructure, we support that. Basically, you're just registering the device as a third-party SIP endpoint. There's more details about this tomorrow, so pay attention to the keynote and make sure to check that out, okay? So there's a few different global use cases, and really what we feel is all of these use cases are going to hit a certain area of the commercial space, right? So all the way up to large spaces, right? Cafeterias, divisible spaces, all-hand spaces, really integrating Zoom rooms into these larger systems. Scale really comes down to display size, display numbers, speaker numbers, microphone coverage, right? Camera coverage. So with all of those things covered, you can really build a Zoom room into any space. So we have a number of global hardware partners. These are all the ones that we're working exclusively with to really give a great Zoom experience. Because it really falls on the hardware, right? The hardware really is an important aspect to your Zoom room experience. So DIY and Pro AV. Zoom Rooms is really, really easy to build out, right? There's a lot of different things, different designs that you can really put into a room. So I really want you guys to think about design in the sense that we're creating a sensory experience, right? We're taking our senses and we're putting them somewhere else. And we're taking somebody else's experience and we're actually bringing it to us, right? Whether it's at your desktop or it's another Zoom room. So think of it that way when you hear about all this hardware. So eyes and ears are my sensory input right now, right? I can hear things, I can see all of you guys. My sensory output is my physical presence and my mouth, right? That's my speaker. So when we talk about Zoom, we're really using technology to create that sensory experience. So I want you guys to think of it that way. So DIY versus professional. How are we integrating these rooms in, and how are we making it easier to build Zoom rooms? So bringing many functions into a single device has really kind of revolutionized the video conferencing industry, really. So we have all-in-one USB devices. We have simple cabling. You can set it up in minutes. You have a display that you're basically hanging, and then you have an all-in-one USB device. The internal IT team, or if you have AV staff in your company, it's really, really easy for them to just go in with some hardware and get a Zoom room at the end of the day, or even in a few minutes. So on the professional side, in-wall cabling, running cabling throughout your infrastructure, setting up DSPs, programming, all of those aspects are going to need an integrator, right? So an AV integrator is going to be your best bet to get the really best Zoom room experience. So some examples, we have the focus and phone room, screen share room, collaboration, touch, huddle room, on the DIY side. So those are really easy and simple to get all the hardware and really build out that room for yourself. On the professional side, those larger spaces, presentation spaces, training rooms, divisible spaces, all of those aspects are really going to be handled by an integrator, and that's really how you're going to end up with the best Zoom room experience. So here's a few new devices. This is the Display 10. So we have the Display 10 D7, which is the all-in-one board, which really is a collaboration experience. You have the touch, Zoom Rooms running touch, and then you have an all-in-one 4K camera, microphone array, and speaker bar up on top. Right? They also have the D7 Suite, which is 2 displays side by side with the same sound bar on top, which is 2 displays wide. They have the same system for D3, which is basically just the non-touch version, right? So if you wanted to put the controller on the table, maybe whiteboarding and touch isn't really needed in that environment. So that's a great solution there. So in terms of focus rooms, phone rooms, traditional phone rooms, you can use one of these devices. These devices really is a computer. It's the touch screen, which is your controller. It's the microphone, it's the speaker, and it's the camera, right? So on the left, you're seeing the Dell Optiplex 7760, which is a 27-inch display. And on the right side, you're seeing the HP Elite One 1000 with a 24-inch display. So more all-in-one cameras. So there's kind of a theme here, right? We're taking all of this functionality and really building it into a single form factor. So on the left, you're seeing the Aver VB342, which is an all-in-one camera. Basically, for our huddle room, which you'll see in a little bit, the huddle room has an Aver VB342 just mounted below at eye level. And then on the right, you're looking at the Swiri, which is a newer product as well, with the PC built into the same experience. So in terms of professional, on this side, when we sort of disperse some of the functionality and add, a specific area, right? So like an all-hands space. You need this professional design so that you have a DSP, you have a little bit more control over the environment. There's USB extension over CAT cabling, there's HDMI extension over CAT cabling, and then the computer is really centralized, close to the DSP is being programmed, things like that. So you have mic arrays out in the environment, you have speakers out in the environment, and making sure that all of this is programmed correctly really should be done on a professional level. So some different hardware options. So starting with compute devices, there's a lot of different computers out there and different options throughout the industry, right? So on the left, you're looking at the HP EliteDesk 800 3G. Over on the right, you have the 7050 Micro from Dell, which is one of their Optiplex models. Mac Minis, Chromebox is brand new, so we support Chromebox now. So there's some specs for you. The Mac Pro, which can run 3-screen solution as well. So as we move forward, Dell is actually coming out with the 5060, which is the latest generation of i5, which can actually run a 3-screen as well. So in terms of controller, there's a lot of different controllers out there. So we have the Heckler Zoom console, which is really our go-to right now, right? Basically, we can build in a PoE and data adapter, and we have all of this functionality built into a traditional-looking touch panel, right? And if you wanted to get a little more fancy, if you want to be able to pick it up and walk around the room and have the wireless capability, the LuxPort is a great solution from iPort. And then we have the all-in-one devices with the mic and speaker and the controller built into the unit. So we have the Crestron Mercury, the Flex M100, and the Polycom Trio. And then, of course, we have the Crestron TSW with control systems, right? So then you can be using control integration as well. So for displays, right now we've standardized on the LG UV340C series. The reason for that is it's a commercial display and it also has CEC control. Any residential display is also going to be, a good solution in general. So for cameras, there's a lot of different cameras out in the market. So for a fixed camera, we're looking at the Aver Cam 340. For all-in-one mic, speaker, and camera, the Logitech Meetup is a really great solution, as well as the Aver VB342. The Logitech Rally has really come out to the market as well, so that's brand new, debuted at Infocom this year. And then we have the Aver Cam 540 as well. So we actually have one up here as well. So we're going to be passing around some of this hardware. Once we get into designs, we'll be bringing that up, and once you understand sort of where it's going and how it ties into our PSO designs, we'll be passing these out so you guys can take a close-up look. And then Panasonic makes the AWHE40, which is a 30x camera, as well as Vadio, which makes the RoboShot HD Base T1 Link, which is also a 30x camera. And then on the right side, you're seeing the Polycom Eagle Eye Director 2, which allows for speaker tracking. So for microphones, these really are our main microphones, the main ones that we're going to be using. So on the left side, you're looking at the MXL microphones. Kind of looks like this. We have a single microphone and then the quad version, right? So this is the MXL AC404Z and the MXL AC360Z. So these microphones are really great because we can utilize Zoom's DSP. So our software audio processing can see them as individual microphones. And then we go to the MXA 310 from Shure. Kind of looks like this. A really nice table mic, requires a DSP, as well as the Shure MXA 910, which is actually a 2x2 ceiling tile that would just go up in the ceiling. And then you have 8 steerable lobes. So audio processing. So we have Zoom's DSP, and then we have external DSPs. So on the Zoom DSP side, we have multi-USB with MXL mics. You can use analog in and out. So I have a pretty good story about analog in and out. I used to work for a company and decided to just build my own all-hand space. I had a DSP under my arm, going up with all of the hardware, putting the rack together. I really like to run shows, so all of my all-hands events would be run by a technician. So I wanted an external mixer. I didn't know if it was going to work, right? This was probably 2015. So I didn't really know if it was going to work or not. Like, is Zoom's DSP good enough where the auto echo cancellation, the noise cancellation, all of the processing that I get out of a rack-mounted unit is done on the software? Is it going to work? So I went ahead and did it, fully ready to pull everything apart and put the DSP in and put everything in line, and it worked great. Right, so from that moment on, I was a Zoom evangelist. I loved it. So, You're also looking at multi-XLR. So we're looking at the Focusrite 18i20, which allows for 8 different XLR inputs. And then also Dante virtual sound card. So using virtual sound card with a mic like the MXA310 or the MXA910, just on the same network, communicating directly with Zoom. So up to 8 channels on Dante virtual sound card. So for external DSPs, we have traditional USB speakerphones. So there's the Revo Labs FLX UC500, which has the microphone and speaker built in. So all of that functionality of auto echo cancellation is going to be built right into that product. And then the external DSPs, such as the Shure P300, the QSC Core 110F, and the QSC Core 510i. So all these products are part, or the DSPs are part of all of our designs that we'll talk about. So speakers and amps, we're doing speaker bars. So on the left side, on the DIY side, speaker bars are nice and easy. It kind of makes you feel like the sound is actually coming out of the people's mouths that are on video. So having that experience and having them talking to you and you talking back to them really creates that sensory experience for people. And then for ceiling speakers or wall mount speakers, we've standardized on QSC, so the SPA 260 and the 460, 2 and 4 channel small form factor amplifier. The AD series of speakers, so we have a pendant mount version, a surface mount version, and a ceiling tile mount version. So speaker and mic devices. So the Revo Labs FLX UC500 has really been a workhorse for a number of companies. We have the VB342 and the Meetup up there, which also have been deployed on mass scale. And then the Crestron Mercury, Polycom Trio, and then also new to this market is the Nureva HDL300, which can actually be built out as a dual bar system. So you can have 2 mic and speaker bars within your space. So USB extension, we have to talk about pre-made USB and just putting a Zoom room together, right? You can do that pretty quickly with a pre-made USB extender. And then the 2 in the middle are paired devices, so it's going to be a remote device and a local device. So we're looking at the IO Gear Boost Link and then the Icron Ranger 2304. Both adequate products within this line. And then we're also looking at the Atlona OmniStream, which is new and we're testing today, which is USB over IP. So when we get to our divisible space design, we'll talk a little bit about what our plans are for the future of that design and sort of how we're going to have routable USB. So let's get into design. So we have digital signage. So really what this comes down to in terms of hardware, we have a ceiling mount or a wall mount. We have the display itself, and then we have a few different CPU options. So we have the Azul Access 3 PC stick, a couple of i3 versions of the Mac Mini and the Dell Optiplex. So that's what we're seeing typically. We support portrait mode, so if you have portrait content, maybe it's a menu board in a cafe or something like that. So we support that, as well as uploading of images, URL, video streaming, and URLs for non-authenticated web pages, such as dashboards. So that same platform can actually be built out in a room. So if you have digital signage, put it in a conference room. Maybe you're not paying for a license. And then if you get the computer with the spec for a huddle room, you can just build out the huddle room and then add the Aver VB342 or the Logitech Meetup underneath, and then you have a Zoom room. But for this design, we're basically using that digital signage as a screen share. So with that design, we have AirPlay. We also have wireless sharing via sharing key. So nice and easy to just walk in a room and wirelessly screen share on the same platform. And something else worth mentioning about this platform is that it's also a broadcast platform, right? So if you have an all-hands meeting and you want that meeting to go out to your spaces across the world, you can just use these as a receive-only Zoom room. So it'll receive the audio and video from that meeting. So looking at phone rooms, basically we're using that all-in-one device that we talked about earlier, basically putting this in a small room rather than a handset or something like that. And now you have a video experience in a small room. So here's our cart system. We're utilizing the Heckler cart. which is out on the floor, so go check it out. They also make a meetup mount as well as a VB342 mount that you're seeing on the left there. So this is a really great solution anytime you need a Zoom room to really go anywhere. So you can roll this up to somebody's desk, just have an ad hoc meeting and have these around the office. And also these can be collaboration systems. So think about mounting that above the display. Oh. So you mount the camera and mic above the display. And then you're able to have a really great collaboration experience. So here's our huddle room. It's really just a 55-inch display with the Aver VB342 mounted below it. And then we have the controller out on the table. So the controller typically is going to be in the Heckler Design Zoom console with the PoE and data adapter. So this is kind of the layout. This is what it looks like. At the bottom, you're looking at the optional wired HDMI share. So if you take that out of the equation, it really is a simple solution. Nothing needs to be tied between different locations. So moving on, we have the MXL AC360, AC404. So here, I'm actually going to pass these around, just so that you guys can actually get some hands-on. I'd like you guys to see it. So really in this design, we have two of the AC360s in the middle of the table, and then we have two of the 404s towards the displays. So it's a single cable between the table and the displays where the computer is actually wall mounted there. Right? So it's a nice and easy installation for the most part. The CEC adapter is in there, so basically we're using the CEC adapter with a CEC-less cable so that we can control the displays and allow for on-off control. So you're going to see this throughout these designs. We're also using the soundbar up at the top right there, as well as the Aver Cam 520 pictured there. So another one that has been introduced here at Zoomtopia is actually the Aver Cam 540, which is actually the next generation of that model. So I'm also going to hand that out so you guys can check it out. So here's our mic layout. So the reasoning for this mic layout is we have a couple of mics right at the front. So the two AC404Zs are going to be right at the front, just so that we can give the room a couple of ears. Right, so the people that are in the front and they want to face the video participants, they need to be heard as well. So that person that's right up front, maybe they're rolling up to the display or getting right up nice and close to them. So giving the room ears really is kind of a theme here. So in this design, we have the Focusrite using the XLR interfaces that we talked about earlier. So it's just an XLR interface with 8 XLR coming in and utilizing analog audio. So that design kind of looks like this. So from a hardware standpoint, we're using the Audix M3s, which are a 3-array microphone, as well as the Audix MX202s from Shure. So if you look at this design, again, the MX202s are really because we have 2 extra channels on our 8-channel interface. So the two 3-channel, 3-mic, 3-array devices, that's 6 channels of audio. We wanted to give the room ears again, right? So you'll see them right there hanging over the displays. So moving on to Pro AV, this is really our standard medium room, utilizing the MXA 310s, which is right here. So it's actually utilizing the MXA 310 as well as the P300, which is just a small DSP, right? So it's a nice, easy installation just to mount this on the wall. You have this connected into a network switch. So this design really looks like this. So take a look at the P300 as well as the MXA 310. So we're using a few ceiling speakers, the MXA 310s, as well as that P300. The P300 is basically just feeding in and out of the Zoom room, and then we're coming out of the P300 going into the amplifier. So it's key to know that you're utilizing the DSP for all of your echo cancellation, so that reference needs to be correct. We need to be utilizing the P300 really for everything. So this is what that layout looks like. We're tending to put the microphones a little closer to the displays. So when we go to the 9 to 19 person room, really we're moving to the MXA 910s, which is that ceiling tile microphone, as well as ceiling speakers, a couple of 75-inch displays, and the Aver cam. So that design looks like this. Basically from the last design, the main thing that you would notice is the rack. So now we have a rack because we have a larger DSP. We're utilizing that DSP with AES67 coming in from the MXA 910. So here's that layout, really spotlighting that this microphone really can spotlight speakers. So there's 8 lobes to the microphone. They're all configurable. So you can figure out who's talking, and then those speakers can be highlighted whenever they raise their voice. So this is a new design. We've basically taken that audio experience and flipped it so that we can have really a more immersive experience, a more intimate experience with the people on video. So this is going to 3 screens. So we're using the 3-screen design, and we've also changed the camera to the Polycom Director 2. So that design looks like this. It's very similar, just making sure that we have the right spec for the computer, and we're also feeding that Eagle Eye a reference signal. So pretty straightforward, pretty similar to that other design, but we're adding that extra display, and everything else is pretty similar here. So from a layout standpoint, again, we're trying to give the room ears. We really want people to have that interaction with the people that are on video, and those people on video to be interacting with the people, feeling like it is a sensory experience and having that human interaction. So now moving on to the all-hands space. So a presentation space really consists of 3 experiences. It consists of the presenter, it consists of the people in the room, and then it consists of the people on the far end. So the people in the room really just want to see the content, so you see repeat monitors there. They also want to hear, so you need to make sure that you have audio coverage throughout the space. The people on the far end really just want to see the presenter. So this is the view from the front of the room looking back, and you can see the confidence monitors and the camera are associated. So that presenter really wants to be focused on the people in the room themselves, and then the people that are on video. So everybody is important, and their content. So looking at the people that are there and having them look back, right? So their experience needs to be some eye contact and making sure that they're having a really personal experience, like they are there in the crowd. So you'll see something similar to this design out in our training room, which we'll talk about in a second, which is very similar to this design. We're using a few wireless microphones. So the wireless microphones, really that audience experience needs to be correct for the space. So an all-hands space, typically it's a cafeteria, maybe there's a kitchen that's kind of loud. You really want to segment the 2 different audio paths, right? So if you put ceiling microphones in that experience, those presenter microphones are going to suffer. So moving on to the training or classroom, you can use a document camera in here as well. This really is a cool experience. The people in the room are basically what we've added is ceiling microphones. We've taken away the repeat monitors unless they're needed. So a pretty simple design. Again, very similar to the other one. A lot of the aspects of the other design you're going to see here as well. But that interaction with the audience really is important. So that audience needs to have that live microphone so that they can talk, and that room really needs to be that right situation where they're going to be focused on the content. It isn't going to be noisy. Maybe it's designed for that purpose here. So now in our divisible space, basically this design, we've taken the training room and we've duplicated it into one large system with 2 training rooms and a divisible wall. So that divisible wall is going to be triggered by a partition sensor, and that really is the key to the room. So when you open up the partition sensor, or when you open up the room, the partition sensor, either that laser is going to be broken or it's not going to be broken. So that really dictates to the room, how is the video being routed, how's the audio being routed. So here's another layout. So the functionality of the space really is great, and the user experience being the wall itself really alleviates some of the confusion sometimes that I've seen in divisible spaces where you walk in, maybe there's a touch panel that controls all the routing, it also controls how to set everything up. This is all automated for a much more simple experience and consistent experience with all of your other rooms. So this is kind of what that design looks like. There's a functional schematic on our website, which I'm going to show you how to get to right here. So if you go to support.zoom.us, on the bottom left, you just click Zoom Rooms. And then over on the right side, you'll see our hardware guides. There's a lot of information within the hardware guides, but this is the information that I want to point you guys to. Right, so these are all of these designs. We have a 3D mock-up. We have a complete equipment list with everything that goes into the space. Some of them have picture schematics, and then they all have a functional schematic like it would come from an integrator. So if you guys wanted to choose an integrator and you like these designs or think that they would work well, you could work with the integrator, provide our schematic, and then move forward from there. So we have global Zoom Room deployments. A lot of different companies are deploying hundreds and hundreds of Zoom Rooms. Everybody kind of has their own flavor, their own reasons to choose specific hardware. So certain hardware really, and I'm going to pass this around as well. I did not get to do that. Sorry about that. So the Aver VB342, unfortunately we only have one, so hopefully you guys will be able to see it. I wanted you guys just to get hands-on with that as well. You know, Uber, Asurion, 21st Century Fox, you know, you guys know these logos very well, right? So all of this leads me to Drew, who's the UC collaboration engineer at Equinix. So Drew's going to talk about his environment. He's been utilizing Zoom PSO to deploy rooms within his environment. He's actually deployed the divisible space as well. So I'm actually going to pass it off to Drew to talk about his environment.
Great.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Give a hand to Drew.
All right. Okay. All right. So, hey everybody, I'm Drew. I'm with Equinix. We recently deployed a little over 170 Zoom rooms throughout the globe. You can see where some of our office locations are. So as we were planning our deployment strategy and trying to figure out how we were going to approach this, there were some key things we had to take into consideration as we were thinking about hardware and deployment options. Some of our original challenges before we went this way is a lot of our rooms were processor-driven systems. Touch panels that had multiple settings, like there's an advanced feature if you needed additional options in the room, as well as different versions because we had locked advanced features as well as different designs by different vendors because we, generation, when we deployed the rooms and who deployed the rooms dictated how everything looked, which created a problem if you were in one office going to the next office. And then legacy equipment and multiple failure points that we had to deal with. So some of our internal issues is that we acquired a lot of these offices. So if we were starting from scratch, we would have had a plan to say, hey, we're going to deploy all of this particular type of room and go that route, whereas we were taking on additional offices that already had solutions in place, which created its own unique challenges in itself. Another thing is we don't have a large AV team or a large IT team to support it all, so we had to be we had to take a lot in consideration in that. Lack of local support in each office, and the different platforms we had to work within. Some of the things about that is how are we going to be able to integrate all of these into a solution and everyone feeling comfortable in using that solution. So we had various things that we had to also account for. So different microphone types, different input sources, and all of the different audios. We had some rooms that were phone-only rooms. We had rooms that had ceiling mics, rooms that had table mics, and we wanted to get something that would allow us to address all of that. So why we went with Zoom was because of the reliability of the platform. We had several meetings that we tested with, and it worked out well. It was an ease of integration. There wasn't a lot of time needed to set up a room, to integrate the room, and we automatically got dashboard features that allowed us to see what's going on in rooms from day one that didn't take additional setup or back-end programming for us to deal with. And then the user interface, whether it was on the laptop, on mobile, or within the conference room, was pretty seamless. Everything seemed the same. People liked the fact that it looked the same. So why we went with Zoom PSO, they weren't trying to push a certain product to us because they were trying to sell it to us. They were trying to open us up to several products, try out what we wanted to, see what worked best for our environment, because not every device is right for every environment. Immediate ownership. So whenever we did have a problem or ran into an issue, we did have our customer success manager who took the time to look into our tickets to figure out why certain issues were happening. They would look through their ticket system to see if other people had that issue, and then they'd follow up with us. A lot of the internal employees love the fact that someone from Zoom might respond directly to them. So it wasn't as if it was just us trying to provide that level of support internally. It seemed that Zoom was also taking that extra step to assist and provide that support to our internal employees. And the designs are simplified. So what we put together was some of our basic standards with some core components. So our small huddle room, the 2 to 4 person room, this is what it looks like for us. We have our meetup, the iPad on the table, as well as our display. We provide instructions right on the display, so that way someone who has never gone into the room and doesn't know exactly what to do, they can look at the screen and see how to start a meeting, how to integrate a meeting, how to share their laptop, and get it going right away. Our medium room, which is a dual display typically, we utilize the Logitech group system. One of the reasons we went with the Logitech group system is because it's easy to get outside of the country as well. One of those things that was quick, if we needed to get a replacement, if someone else needed one, it was easy to procure within a few days, and it reduces the downtime in the rooms, which is key. Once we went to the platform, people started using it more, and they don't want that downtime. They want to rely on the system. Here's an example of one of our medium rooms, the same instructions on the screen, more seats and instructions as well. Then we got to our large exec and board rooms, more people. We integrated a DSP, a higher end camera, larger displays, still kept the core components. And this is what one of our boardrooms looks like. That's our boardroom in Redwood City, but you can see it has the table mics, and ceiling speakers are hidden in here, but that's all in that room. Here's another example. These are 2 additional rooms that we have. One is one of our older rooms that has a bi-amp in it, as well as older version of the Shure microphones, so they're not the Dante-enabled ones. So that's the one on the right there. And this is another one of our rooms we deployed recently as well, the North America UBC. It has the table mics as well. The one that I am most excited about because of how easy it was for our users to use is our divisible space. It's similar to what Tyler was talking about, how we're utilizing the sensor to change the functions in the room. What that did was it took out the need for someone to actually know how to use the touch panel and make changes and everything, where we're just opening up the room and everything is happening on the back end based on the relays from the sensor. So we have dual ceiling mics in each room. We also have a lapel and a handheld mic for each room individually. So they operate as 2 individual rooms when they're separated, but they join into one, and we're utilizing both screens. Here's a wide shot of what that looks like. So these are 2 separate rooms. We're using it for pods in this scenario, and we're about to join a meeting, and there will be someone in the front speaking. They'll be able to be heard. The ceiling mics are always live. There's There's a gate on them to kind of keep them from, we duck the sound so that people can talk a little bit. As long as the main person is talking, you don't hear them, and then it gradually will let the people in the room be heard so that it can be done for either Q&A, or if people are actually participating back and forth at these pods, they can be heard on the other end as well, and they don't need a handheld mic or a lapel mic to speak into the system. So one thing I wanted to highlight during our whole deployment was the fact that people started using video a lot more once we went this route, because people were utilizing the same tool on their laptops and on their phones that they were using in the conference rooms. So immediately people wanted to start joining meetings, being seen a little bit more. People inside the rooms wanted to be able to see more people, so it was great for our environment to start taking advantage of that. And how we accommodated was just adding more screens so people could be seen throughout. On the left here is another kind of ad hoc space we did. We added additional microphones into an XLR input that was going straight into a USB interface, and we were able to have a panel so that we can share multiple microphones from that panel into the Zoom system, and we just outputted through some monitors that we had in the room, so it was just using an aux channel to accommodate that. So we've done several versions of that because people have asked, hey, we want to have an off-site event. How can we utilize the Zoom system effectively for that? And basically, there has been either a USB interface that we've been able to use, or we actually have a couple mixers that we have that have a USB out. And we pull that up, and we're able to control the mics that way, and we just bring a USB camera, and we have a full Zoom setup ready to go on the beach or at a hotel that we didn't expect to have it at prior. Like I was saying, with the additional sites and people wanting to be seen and heard, here are a couple of examples right here. We have 2 more offices that are just Zoom rooms. They wanted to join a couple meetings, and so they're fully interacting there. And this is our 10th anniversary. All the offices actually joined and got on for VC, and they all shared their screens, and you could see, regardless of which office you were at, exactly who was there. You could wave at people you had emailed, all of that. So it was a nice experience to kind of share it with everyone, so we weren't just one-way sharing, it was back and forth. And that is for one of our other conference centers where we're utilizing Zoom for multiple offices as well. And that's pretty much kind of what our environment looks like, how we've done a few things, and just wanted to share it with you. Thanks.
All right, Drew. That was great. Thanks for giving everyone a perspective. I mean, it's really important to see sort of how different the world is, right? And how different environments can be. So Equinix, right? 172 rooms, 14 countries, 33 cities. That's huge. So let's talk about resellers for a minute. So we have a few different options for hardware resellers for DIY. You can go to Amazon and get most anything to put a Zoom room together. You can go to CDW, you can go to videoconferencegear.com. You can also utilize Think Fast Track, right? So Think Fast Track also has Pro AV kits as well. So we have a few global distributors. We have Tech Data, we have Ingram Micro, and we have Starin. So these really are our preferred distributors. All of these integrators, so if you go to zoom.us/integrators, you're going to see logos for all of the integrators that we've certified. So these are integrators that have been through the process of learning about Zoom rooms. They've deployed great Zoom rooms already, and they'll be able to deploy Zoom rooms for you and your company. I've lost internet. I think we have a questions slide after this one. So, are there any questions out in the audience in terms of hardware and sort of what we're doing? Go ahead.
Is SPT on the list of integrators for technologies?
I am not sure. You can check it. I'm not sure today. Mm-hmm. Yes.
In that visible room, you said there was a sensor that notes whether the wall is there or not. What does that connect back to?
So it actually connects back to the QSys Core 110F. So good question. And the Core 110F really is a control system. So with that control system, we actually are talking to a video matrix and doing the audio routing internally. And then in the future, we'll use USB over IP devices to reroute video, or USB cameras throughout the space as well. Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I believe that this is being streamed out and it's going to be on YouTube, so you'll have access to the presentation. But reach out to us. So our email is pso@zoom.us. So just give us an email and we'll be able to get it to you.
Hey, here. Go ahead.
Sorry.
You talked about your internal DSP and solution that you had actually deployed prior.
Mm-hmm.
How many microphones does that support?
So for the MXL microphone design, it can support up to 12 microphones. And the AC360Z actually counts as 4 different microphones, right? So just something to keep in mind. So we can support up to 3 of those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my question's like kind of following his.
Sure.
So if you have like the Revolab speaker and microphone all in one, can you add multiple Revolabs in the same room?
So you cannot add multiple Revo Labs. It's going to be the single Revo Labs that operates as the full device. You can add extension microphones to the 1500 version of that unit. So just make sure that you get the 1500. So that's the FLX UC 1500, and it comes with extension microphones.
Yeah. When you have the Optiplex small form PC running the Zoom room, are you able to display on multiple controllers using just that one Zoom room?
So it's only going to have one controller that's paired to it at a time.
Okay, so you can't have multiple ones, say one on a wall outside of a conference room and then one controlling
So you
it
can
on
have the
table?
scheduler outside of the room, which is going to allow you to schedule the room. But the controller, you're only going to have one controller.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hi. I think one question I have, really, some rooms, what about like echo? What about the environment? I know it's like to have the really good experience that, you can have all this equipment, but what about, the echo in the room if it's
So
there?
I think you're talking about like maybe a glass bowl type of room where there's two panels of glass on either side. The best thing that you can do is add objects, right? Whether that's a bookcase or a plant to reduce that reverberation in the room. The microphones are going to listen to the room. They want to listen to the room. So if your voice is bouncing all around the room, that is going to be reflected through the experience. So really trying to mitigate that with, ceiling panels, wall panels, as well as physical devices or physical objects in the room. Mm-hmm.
Hi, we have a large Dante network in our environment, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how Zoom kind of fits that use case, unless it's something where you don't have DSPs.
Sure.
Is there other use cases around, why we should have Dante and Zoom together?
So Dante by itself, utilizing Dante Virtual Sound Card really is that what you're talking about? You're talking about Dante Virtual Sound Card and basically tying in Dante microphones right into the Zoom room itself?
Yeah, we have quite a bit of symmetric edge and biamps, and we have Allen Heath boards that are all Dante, and we're able to route to anything pretty much, right? So in our current environment, I don't know how Dante would be, for the Zoom room specifically, how does that kind of work with our use case, if any? The only thing I could think of is maybe if you don't have DSPs.
Yeah, so if you were to remove the DSPs and basically put all those Dante devices on your network, obviously this would take a good amount of assessment to make sure that, putting all of this audio traffic on your corporate LAN makes sense to do.
We're in a private network, but yeah.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Nick, go ahead.
So in terms of Dante, if you have the microphone, in terms of Dante, there are two things. If you have an existing Dante network, you're routing to a DSP, everything stays the same. Zoom is just going to work with your DSP from a buy-in perspective to come into us as an input out, as a microphone, right? Speaker will go out either back to your DSP, going out as well. So you're just coming in and on there. So we leverage your Dante network as is without changes. The only exception is if you're building out a new Dante setup in some rooms, Zoom has the ability to actually accept Dante directly into Zoom without the need of external DSP. right? So essentially, you can have a room that built on soft DSP using Dante virtual sound card coming to us directly, and we feed it out of it without a physical DSP in the room. Does that make sense? Okay.
My question is regarding touchscreen. I believe the annotation was limited to a one-screen setup Zoom room. Has that changed? Can you have, say, two side-by-side display screens
Yes.
and then have a third touchscreen?
Yeah, so we do support a dual screen setup for touch. One is going to be touch, the other one is going to be non-touch. Okay. Three screen you can you can't have a touch and non-touch. They're all non-touch for three screens, because three screens are typically up facing up in the front like a executive layout. So those are all non-touch. Okay, but for touch you can do a touch and a non-touch. Yes. I think you have a question earlier around speaker tracking. So I know that people have asked the question around speaker tracking, right? What are the, how do you do speaker tracking? So there are two concepts here on speaker tracking. There's a concept of framing, right? Essentially, there's auto framing. So lots of cameras right now do auto framing. When you come in, if there are two of us, they will sort of frame us. If I'm aside, it will frame me on the side, right? Doesn't mean it's tracking. That's just framing, okay? So we work with Panascast on auto framing. We work with Logitech Rally on auto framing, and then I think there are a couple more new ones. So even the Avra 540 will be doing auto framing as well. Then there's the issue of speaker tracking. Who is speaking? I'll frame you and then I'll track you, right? So I know that out of you four, you're there, but this gentleman is talking. I'll zoom into you. That's called speaker tracking. Today we work with two technologies that we're testing with right now. One is actually the one that you've seen out there is Polycom Eagle Eye. So Polycom Eagle Eye has an external mic that will sort of track who's talking and then frame and track into it. The second one we're working with is a company called One Beyond. One Beyond is integrated with different microphones out there. Let's say you have a MXA 310 or MXA 910, or even MXL in the future, where we can track where the speakers are from the mic, and then we send the signal back to them to track where the speaker is, okay? So really that's called speaker tracking based on the microphone detection, okay? So it's framing and tracking.
Which one do you like the best?
So right now, depending on how much you want to spend, really it's a cost issue right now. The Eagle Eye is a great product. The cost is a little bit on the higher end. And then you have the One Beyond, which is a more affordable cost to that as well. So it's a cost issue, yes.
Another way to look at that same question would be, really depends on the room. That if you have a fishbowl conference room and there's a glass wall that the camera sees through, you have people walking by on the other side of that glass.
Yes, that's not.
You want auto tracking, you don't want the camera tracking the people walking by.
That is correct. That is a great answer, right? Depends on the room. If got, even like here when we're demoing, we have to turn it off because there are too many.
There are always variables in conference rooms.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
On the Eagle Eye Director 2,
Yes.
how are you getting that into the Mac Mini or whatever? Are you using the USB out on it?
Correct. Yeah. Essentially, there's USB out directly into the Mac Mini or the PC, and then we take the microphone. We take one of the microphone and reference it back into the camera to prevent it from turning around when the TV is talking. Okay?
Or looking at ceiling speakers
Okay.
or something like that, right?
So you turn around. Okay. Any other questions?
When I set my Zoom up, I have the option to either select schedule display or controller.
Right.
If I had two iPads, did I make one the controller and one the display for that same particular Zoom room, or is it either or?
So it is specific to that device, right? So you have a scheduler and you have the controller. So you can have one of each, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think the point is fair. You guys have asked that. We've heard it around as well. When you have larger rooms, you need two controllers,
Right.
or in the larger room, you need two displays outside. So that's a fair assessment. We're working on it. Okay. Thank you. Yes. I hear you. I hear you.
Any other questions?
Exposed concrete ceilings.
Mm-hmm.
You have some solutions for that. I'm coming across one speaker bar is too loud to get to the back of my conference room,
Okay.
and I wasn't given a lot of options. And it's the same in all my offices.
So there are two to that. You can do the speaker, I'll do the microphone. So echoes in rooms, somebody brought it up earlier, it is a critical setup you have to think about in terms of the room types and the room microphones pick up on it, right? So, I mean, we have done lots of testing with different variety of products, and those recommendations that you've seen up there are those that we have tested, and we know that they work in more challenging environment. MXL has actually been a really good product, even in very challenging environments that we have tested with. Okay, with high reverb, they have handled it well. It is tabletop, not ceiling. With high reverb, ceiling is not going to do much. MXA 910 on ceiling has done a pretty good job. On a desktop, the MXL 360 and 404 has done a really good job in taking care of the reverb in those rooms. Okay, now, and when it comes to speaker, in terms of challenging that, what's your suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, speakers, we're again talking about audio bouncing around the room. So again, it does come down to physical objects and really creating some dampening. Adding carpet maybe might be a nice solution. And bookcases, I always recommend bookcases because it's kind of a not flat surface that isn't going to cause more.
But I think the question is, if you don't have enough, if the sound bar in the front is not enough, what do you do, right? You can put wall mounts. Right. Wall mount speakers. Since you have ceiling that you can do concrete, you can do wall mount speakers. We can run across the back wall mounts.
So surface mount speakers right in the corner, all along the room, might be a nice solution as well, just to distribute the audio a little bit better. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's kind of a question / statement, I suppose. So if you're using Dante, a couple of times you said use a PoE switch. Make sure that you look at the Dante's white paper about what switch to use.
Yes.
Right. Correct.
On those switches, make sure it's the correct type of switch, don't just plug it into any other switch.
Right, so traditionally, those Dante systems are going to be integrated by somebody that's certified by that company, by Shure or by QSC. So they all have those certified switches as well. So they should be hip to that.
Okay. Yeah, guys, we have to
close out. I think we're done. Thank you guys so much for your time.